how should we understand Galatians 3:16, where it says the promises refer to one seed, that is Jesus? This is the most common misinterpretation of the Abrahamic covenant. And so let's turn there. I'll read it to you, and I'll do my best to explain it. I don't think we can understand it without the Old Testament background. Here's what it says in Galatians 3:16. Now the promises were spoken to Abraham and to his seed. He does not say, and to seeds, as though referring to many, but referring to one, and to your seed, who is the Messiah. So this is talking about the promise here, where the promise of eternal forgiveness and redemption and justification will actually reach those who are not just the Jewish people, that it'll reach the world. It goes on to say that since faith has come, you are no longer under guardian. Verse 26, for you are all sons of God through faith in the Messiah Jesus. And then verse 29, if you belong to Messiah, then you are Abraham's seed. Now I want to point out a couple things. First of all, he has just changed the seed from one to many. If you believe, you're Abraham's seed. Secondly, Abraham had many offspring, not just the Jewish people. He had the children with the sons of he had sons of Keturah, his wife that he took after Sarah. There were other descendants he had, and also, for example, in Romans 4, and here, the idea that there are also sons of Abraham by faith. That's what this is talking about. That you don't have to be circumcised in order to become a follower of Yeshua. You don't have to become or to experience justification by faith. You don't have to be physically circumcised. All you have to do is to become a follower of the Messiah, and now you become a son of Abraham or daughter by faith. That's what it's talking about, offspring of Abraham by faith. But let's go back to verse 16. Paul makes a big deal about saying, now the promises were spoken to Abraham and to his seed. He does not say to seeds, as though referring to many, but referring to one and to your seed. Well, in Hebrew, the word zerah, seed, does not have a plural form. People think Paul doesn't understand grammar. The word seed is like the English word sheep, one sheep or many sheep. It is it's always singular in form. It can refer to an individual, or it can refer to a collective. And what he is, so Paul, how could, it's not plural, he's saying that. Well, I'll tell you what Paul is doing in a minute, but I think that's really important. I think the easiest English translation, if you don't want to deal with the word seed, is he does not say, and to offspring, as referring to many, but referring to one, and to your offspring. That's the idea, because the word offspring has the idea of either many or an individual, collective or an individual. So that's what we need to understand. So what background is he using in Genesis to describe this? If you go back to Genesis chapter 22, in Genesis 22, this is after Abraham has offered Isaac and God has intervened. He says in verse 17, I will indeed bless you and make your seed or your offspring as numerous as the stars of the sky and the sand on the seashore. So there he is talking about the collective group of Israel. God is going to multiply Abraham's seed. That's referring to the Jewish people, right there, the collective. And I think that's what Paul is talking about when he says he's not talking to seeds, but to seed, individual. He's saying he's not using the collective sense. Here I'm focusing on the individual sense. Where does that come? In the middle of verse 17, it says, your seed will possess the gates of, my version says there, but in Hebrew it says, his, singular, his enemies. And all nations of the earth will be blessed by your seed because you have obeyed my command. Now, what is this saying? How can he, on the one hand, refer to, I'm going to multiply your seed as the stars and as the sand, right? Collective. Well, there is normally in Hebrew, there's a continuative sense, a consecutive idea, continuing the same thought. Right in the middle of verse 17, it stops. And it says that your seed, that's a new thought, will possess the gates of his enemies. When there is a singular pronoun referring back to seed, it's referring to one, an individual. So here's what this verse is saying. On the one hand, I'm going to produce, you're going to have many offspring, collective seed, lots and lots of people. But you will also have one particular offspring who will rule. He'll possess the gates of his enemies, and this particular singular offspring will also bless the nations, and all nations of the earth will be blessed by your seed. That's what's so crucial here in Genesis 22:18. So what you have is both in Genesis 22:17 and 18, you have the collective seed and the individual seed. What Paul is doing in Galatians 3:16 is he's not negating the promise that there's a collective seed that receives the Abrahamic promises, but what he is saying here when it comes to justification by faith, remember this, there is one seed that Abraham was promised that would bless the whole world. That's Genesis 22:18, in your individual offspring. That's why he says this thing about, I'm not talking about the plural, I'm talking about the singular, because he doesn't have the grammatical terms that we have today. He's saying, I'm trying to say that I am focusing here on the one seed. That doesn't negate the fact that there was a collective promise to Israel, but there is this one aspect of it, the individual offspring of Abraham. And Gentiles don't need to join the people of Israel. They just need to join themselves to that one that was promised, that would then make them all, if they trust in him, all sons of Abraham by faith. That's what it's talking about. It's not saying that they get all the blessings, the land and the seed and all the other promises, the blessing for blessing that God promised Abraham. It's just saying that the spiritual promise of blessing the whole world, that's how Gentiles receive it, by becoming followers of the Messiah Jesus. That's how they receive the promise, and that's how they become sons of Abraham. If you belong to Messiah, then you are Abraham's seed. Spiritually, you get the spiritual benefits of the Abrahamic covenant that were promised there in Genesis 22:18, that are promised here in Galatians 3, and also promised in Romans 4. It doesn't negate the collective sense. It is just focusing here for Gentiles on the individual spiritual sense. That's what they receive.
If you enjoyed what you just watched, please like, comment, or subscribe to our YouTube channel for more great teachings, videos on our work, and the latest updates on our ministry. If you'd like a copy of a free book I wrote entitled Isaiah 53 Explained, then please click on the link provided, and I know that you'll receive it and enjoy it. So God bless you, and shalom.